Celebrity endorsements have long been in the picture of presidential elections, helping drive more attention, funding, and enthusiasm to candidates' campaigns. While a new study has found that celebrities do more than generate online buzz, they have the power to influence elections to a certain extent. Well, to discuss, we can bring in Allyson Shortle. She's the Associate Professor at the University of Oklahoma. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thanks for having me.
I'll start by asking your opinion on how important celebrity endorsements are and whether they actually make a difference in voters' minds.
Well, it's a great question. We are a little unclear on it at this point in time. What we typically think as political scientists is that things like partisanship, the economy matter much more than things like celebrity endorsements. But in recent years, with elections with such tight margins, we start looking at these marginal effects, especially on mobilization, that maybe celebrity endorsements can have for particular candidates.
And these endorsements by stars and influencers do create a huge buzz. I want to take the example of, Taylor Swift, who endorsed Kamala Harris and generated massive online traffic. What makes people act in these stars' footsteps? I mean, is it just that they are admired and looked up to and want to have something in common, perhaps with the stars they love?
Well, it's a complicated story. Taylor Swift came out on Instagram, a popular social media site, in favor of Kamala Harris. And likely, and certainly according to my colleagues and I who ran a study on a Taylor Swift endorsement, the people who are looking at these are mainly Taylor Swift fans. So you have to ask yourself, one, who are Taylor Swift fans politically? Are they even political? And then two, out of those political Taylor Swift fans, what effect is this endorsement really having relative to things like an endorsement from a politician, an endorsement from an interest group? In the study that I ran with my colleagues, Brooklyn Walker at Hutchinson College and Mark Harvey, who is at the University of St. Mary, we actually found, using an experiment on a survey of over 1,000 Americans, that the endorsement from Taylor Swift, which was ran before the actual endorsement, so it wasn't polluted by already the media spin about this endorsement, we found that a partisan endorsement actually decreased voters' likelihood to turn out to vote if they were specifically Taylor Swift fans that were undecided voters. Now, this is really important because these are the voters that someone like Kamala Harris needs to benefit from with these particular endorsements.
And more generally speaking, why do celebrities do this? What's in it for them to get involved in politics?
Well, I think there's a variety of motivations here. Partially, this is something that might be personally important to these people. Certainly, if you watch Taylor Swift's entertainment, some of her documentaries, as well as her general speeches and information she puts online, she will say that this is personally important to her. She has come out against the Republican nominee, former President Donald Trump. She has a distaste for his politics. She also supports liberal politics in general, and she's a huge supporter of LGBT rights as well as reproductive rights, which Donald Trump has bragged about taking away.
And are there different age groups that are more influenced by celebrities, do you think?
Well, I think that there should be. When we look at young voters in the US, you can look to Melissa Deckman's work on the Gen Z politics. She just published a book on this. And what she found is that young people who identify as LGBT as well as young women are much more likely to be politically engaged than young men today. And they're also very likely to hold progressive viewpoints. So taken together, we do see that these young voters, particularly women and LGBT identifying young people, are likely to respond to progressive messaging in particular. Now, I haven't found that in my data yet, but I do think it speaks to the fact that we don't have as large a population of voters in the Gen Z cohort, but in future years, this likely will make a larger impact.
Well, I want to expand on what you just said about Gen Z because, celebrity endorsements are obviously not new in the history of presidential elections, but influencers are new to the scene. I was wondering how much influence do influencers wield, especially among the Gen Z, who are this cycle's youngest demographic?
It's pretty hard to say, largely because young voters are not as participatory in general as people who have been voting in several elections. And we just have less data on how they're behaving. And the data that we do have, we focus on this gap between different populations. As a result, we don't know what the future holds exactly, but we do think that young people are mired in more social media content. Their entire informational ecosystem is completely different than the generations before them. I'll give you an example. You can imagine boomer generation Americans are very much getting most of their information from TV news. And for a long time, people thought television news was where people are getting their information. I have run recent data of the local news ecosystem in the state of Oklahoma, finding that most people are going to social media to get their information. And young people in particular tell me that they're going to TikTok now, whereas even millennials were going to Instagram. So it changes generation by generation where they're getting this information and how that affects their politics. Is still really uncertain at this time, but we absolutely know that their informational environment is different than ever before.
All right, I think that data checks out because I myself am a millennial and I don't have TikTok. I go on Instagram. Allyson Shortle, Associate Professor at the University of Oklahoma, thank you so much for joining us on the program and for your time.
Thank you.